The deal you did with Julia Gillard last weekend over the boat folk.
Yep.
I know that the explanation's been given, but I'm discovering that plenty of people still don't get it.
Yeah.
They want to know why. Apart from anything else, apart from the fact that it was the Gillard government that screwed up the arrangement that Howard had that was working pretty well, she screwed it up. We are copping the downside of that, and she's going to be gone in 6 months.
Okay, so let me just run through it quickly. We take 750 refugees every year as part of what's called the UNHCR program. Yeah. Okay, so as a result of this deal, we'll continue to take 750. So this is a debate in the first instance about where those refugees are sourced. So we currently take them from Africa and Asia and camps like that. Now we'll take 150 of them in Australasian territory. So I don't know about you, but for me personally, I'm a bit ambivalent about that. Whether they come from the Sudan or they come from a camp that's in Tasmania, to me it doesn't matter too much. Secondly, people say, well, we don't get anything out of it. Not true. So when we went away and had a look at this whole boat people issue, and we have for quite some time, I got Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet to go and have a look at what can you do when they turn up? Can you just get on the boats and say, look, you're not welcome here, fellas, see you later. Sail back to wherever you came from. None of that works. So, of course, you can't put a fence around New Zealand. You can't stop them sailing in. You certainly can't and would never do anything that's inhumane and, see people drown. And you can't get on the boat and turn them around. So the only way you can stop it is deter that boat from leaving. So the Australians have, both legally and through their financial support, huge capacity to understand missions that are being planned and to interrupt them. We tap into that system as a result of that. Secondly, whether people want to accept it or not, David Shearer was questioning the other day, feel free to come to my office, David, and I'll take you through the paperwork because you're security cleared, mate. There was a ship that wanted to come to New Zealand. These guys didn't want to get off. And in the end, the Australians were going to shepherd them across the Tasman because they couldn't let them sail on their own and drown. And they were literally going to let them you give them support. Well, again, that wouldn't happen. Thirdly, if there were mass arrivals, I accept it's harder to get here, but if there were mass arrivals one day, this deal would require us to change our law, but it would fundamentally allow us, if we wanted to potentially process people in those camps. So for no change in the numbers, but a change in slightly where we take the people, we get all of that optionality for nothing.
When you say you're ambivalent about where they come from, I wonder if your electorate would feel the same.
Well, my point is I'm ambivalent about whether they come from a camp in the Sudan or a camp in basically Western Australia or Christmas Island or Manus or PNG. Now, look, there are always going to be some people who will say we shouldn't take refugees. They don't settle well. There are problems with them. They don't add value to the economy in the way that others might that bring a lot of capital. And then there'll be other people who say, well, we're a first world country. We're 4.5 million people with lots of space. Surely to goodness we can open our hearts for a few people and help them. I personally think we have the numbers about right, 750. They require a lot of support when they come, from housing through to education to social welfare support and training. So taking too many can actually be counterproductive. But as sort of a first world decent country, you do a bit of that. I think 750 about right.
I want to pick up on the boat people thing just for a moment, courtesy of an email. The PM has played a bit of an immigration blinder. The Aussies give us boat people, and after New Zealand citizenship, they walk into Australia, where they wanted to go originally. So, did that cross your mind?
No. But if you look at Australia and the relationship with Australia just for a moment, and look, we did this because I think it's in New Zealand's interests. But, this is also a regional solution. We work with Australia. Let me just give you one simple example. There are lots of things we do together, lots and lots of things with Australia. So we are in the process, and we've got to work our way through it, but we've got agreement from the Australians, not because of this, but just because of the overall relationship, for them to collect student loan debt for New Zealanders that go and live in Australia in the same way that if you've got a student loan in New Zealand, IRD collect that off you. Okay, now we don't exactly know, we're working our way through how much that debt is, but it's in the order of $1.5 billion. So the Australian IRD are going to go and collect that debt as it falls due, and there are hundreds of millions in arrears, and for no charge, give that to New Zealand.
They're not going to clip the ticket.
No.
All right.
So, I'm just sort of saying it's part of a big relationship of things we do.
All right. Sally, morning.
Good morning. My question, Prime Minister, is what are the benefits, and I think that's the word, that Julia Gillard gives New Zealanders who go to Australia that other countries don't get, but then yet they don't qualify for student loans and, those things.
Okay, so basically what you're talking about is the access, the fact that some New Zealanders go to Australia and they don't either get permanent residency or citizenship and therefore don't enjoy all of the full entitlements in Australia. So that was a deal struck by the Labour government in New Zealand in 2001 with the then Howard government. Because New Zealanders have completely unfettered access to the Australian labour markets, anyone can get on a plane, fly over to Australia and start work there, no restrictions. There was concerns back in, as I understand it, the late 90s and early 2000s about that. And so some restrictions were put on, and that was essentially agreed between Helen Clark and John Howard. And the restrictions were you have no restriction in terms of working, but if you don't become a resident or a citizen, you aren't necessarily entitled to some benefit. And that's because they didn't want people going over there and just going straight on a benefit, going to Bondi and not doing any work. So the one thing New Zealand has that no other country has with Australia is we're the only country that can go in there and do that. Now, is it fair and is it logical? Well, I'd put it to you, it's not actually that logical for Australia to sit there and say, if you are born in New Zealand, went over to Australia with your parents when you're 2 years of age, that you may not be now eligible for an Australian student loan for university, because every country should want its people to be tertiary qualified or vocationally qualified, in an apprenticeship or a degree. And I can't see how that's very sensible for Australia, but they need to work their way through it. They are, but there's quite big numbers in terms of the costs involved.